Hey, what's up guys? Matt with the Movement System. As a strength coach, running coach, physical therapist, and a runner myself, I've been in the debate between barefoot running shoes or shoes with a zero drop and more cushioned running shoes for years. But over time, I've realized that most people should have a pair of both. A pair of flat running shoes and a pair of cushioned running shoes. We're going to talk about why from two different perspectives. From the evolutionary biological perspective of some of the benefits of barefoot running and walking, as well as some of the performance benefits of a more cushioned shoe, and when you should use each and how much of each you should use. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to link everything in the description below that we're talking about, but I want to first talk about human gait and why we might choose a barefoot shoe. So if you're interested in learning about evolutionary gait biomechanics and essentially how we became upright and how our feet and our ankles and our hips changed over time, this is an excellent book on essentially the very, very detailed science of human locomotion. And we're not going to get into all this today because this would be like an hour-long YouTube video or more. More so, I'm going to tell you some of my takeaways. So I think a barefoot running shoe is very good for two things, for walking and for sprinting. For most of our evolutionary history, we needed to sprint to get an animal or to get out of an emergency situation or something like that, or walk long distances to find water and food. So while in fact it was evolutionarily beneficial for us to develop good gait biomechanics with a flat, zero drop, natural foot with a wide toe box, that was primarily for distance walking and for sprinting. We just didn't evolve that well to do 13 miles of barefoot running. Distance running is something that was more introduced back to humans very recently as a form of exercise due to the inactivity of daily life. Now, importantly, if you go to the internet and you look for evidence that a barefoot shoe is the best, you're going to find hundreds and thousands of articles to say that barefoot shoes are the way to go. Similarly, if you go to the internet and you look for evidence that you need a sole in your shoe and you need cushion and that's going to help reduce running related injuries, you could find evidence of that. So if you're looking for either evidence to confirm your bias of barefoot shoes or to confirm your bias of needing cushion, you will be able to find it. But there's also evidence that a lot of people who are strongly in one camp or the other are ignoring, and that's the benefit of alternating between two different pairs of shoes. I don't want to make this a research review, rather I want to focus on the actual tangible things that you can do, like buying two different pairs of shoes and when to use each one. And I'll also tell you a little bit about my strategy here. So first of all, we need to figure out what your starting point is. If you've only been using a cushioned shoe, then you don't want to just transition to a more flat or barefoot type shoe very quickly. Whether it's something like an Altra that has some cushion but is zero drop, or something that is a true barefoot shoe with very little cushion, that would be a very, very quick transition to make, and it does put you at significant risk of an Achilles tendon issue. With a barefoot shoe, your Achilles tendon has to absorb more force and go through more range of motion than it does in a shoe where the heel is elevated, slacking the Achilles tendon a little bit. Even though 15, 12, 18 millimeters doesn't sound like a lot in terms of the heel to toe drop, over many repetitions of running, that puts a lot more stress on your Achilles tendon. So if we're going to work into a zero drop shoe, we need to do that gradually, introducing it a little bit at a time. So whatever your current weekly mileage is, and I don't know what it is, it could be 10 miles a week, it could be 3 miles a week, it could be 40 or 70 miles a week. You need to figure out what your mileage is in your current shoe and then decide how you want to distribute that mileage. Personally, I do most of my walking in a barefoot shoe. This feels a little bit better. The metatarsals aren't crunched together. So specifically, if you're having metatarsal pain in the front of the foot, I think that can be a really good benefit to this type of wider toe box, more naturalist type shoe. But personally, even with training my Achilles tendon a lot, doing calf raises, and gradually adopting a barefoot shoe, I probably couldn't handle all of my weekly mileage on this shoe. It's important to remember that some people are built differently as well. So someone who has always used this type of shoe and has preferred it may be able to do that just fine, whereas other people may or may not be able to switch as easily. When it comes to longer runs or performance efforts, this is the shoe that I'm going to race in. Personally, this is the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. The Endorphin Speed 3 is very similar. I just got the Speed 2 on sale whenever it was like ending and the Speed 3 was coming out. whatever. It doesn't really matter. This is just a training shoe without a carbon plate, but some people will even get a carbon plated shoe or a Nike percent zoom, whatever, to get 2% faster. It's up to you what type of shoe you want to run in from a performance standpoint, but generally between a zero drop shoe and a shoe with a bit of heel drop, you're gonna get a little bit of a performance benefit out of having that heel drop. So for me, the distribution between shoes works out to something like 30%, 70%, but for you, it might be very different. I would really warn against doing 90% of your mileage here and then racing, especially for a longer race like a half marathon in a different shoe. You do want to make sure that at least 50% of your volume is in a similar shoe to what you're going to be racing in. That's at least what I would advise as a coach and a physical therapist. But I do think there's benefit to having some of your mileage in both of these. For a lot of people with a performance goal, I could see 80% of your mileage in a more performance shoe and 20% of your mileage in a more naturalist or barefoot shoe being an effective training strategy. All right, so that's my perspective on it. I know it's not as exciting as saying, oh, barefoot shoes will solve all your problems, or you need to have the best performance shoe for all of your mileage. It's kind of a middle of the road stance, but I think it's gonna be the most helpful for a lot of people. Alternating between two pairs of shoes can spread out the loads and stresses involved in running, and it can be a good strategy and it might help you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. If you've had a good experience with a specific shoe, feel free to leave that as a recommendation in the description below as well. I'll also leave an Amazon link to some of the running products that I recommend. So if you do want to pick up some running products and support the channel, it would be much appreciated. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.